what if everything we know about human history is, just fundamentally wrong?
Right.
Like, what if instead of this slow, steady climb from cavemen discovering fire to modern engineers building skyscrapers, human civilization has actually reached these towering technological peaks, only to be completely erased by apocalyptic global resets?
It's a huge question.
It really is. Today, we are looking at the geological proof that it has actually happened before. We are diving into a stack of sources that takes us from the deepest, thinnest crust of the ocean floor straight into the mathematics of ancient plasma physics.
Which is wild.
So wild. We are searching for the physical remnants of Plato's Atlantis, exploring mind-mending theories about lost technology, and basically dismantling this comforting idea of a slow Earth.
Yeah, that slow Earth concept is deeply ingrained in us.
By the end of this deep dive, the entire timeline of humanity as you know it is going to look completely different.
Okay.
Let's unpack this, because the immediate hurdle we have to jump over is our own perception of time. We look at a mountain and assume it's been exactly like that for 10 million years.
It is a comforting illusion. I mean,
Yeah.
the prevailing dogma in traditional geology has long been uniformitarianism.
Uniformitarianism.
Right, which is just the assumption that the same gradual processes we see today have always operated at the same slow, creeping pace. Plate tectonics drifting at the speed your fingernails grow.
Right, canyons carved over eons by trickling water.
Yeah, it feels safe.
Yeah.
It implies a predictable, stable planet where tomorrow will look exactly like today.
Mm-hmm.
But when you critically examine the actual physical remnants of our planet's past, that illusion just shatters.
It totally shatters.
We are talking about cataclysmic events that can rewrite the map of the world practically overnight.
Right, because our human lifespan is so short. A boulder shifting 12 feet down a hill makes the local evening news.
Exactly.
But the sources we are looking at pull back the curtain on what the Earth is actually capable of when it gets angry. Look at the 1964 Alaskan earthquake.
Oh, yeah.
That was an 8.3 on the Richter scale. The historical accounts and photographs from that event don't show a slow, gradual shift. They show absolute, instantaneous destruction.
The ground literally liquefied.
Yeah, it didn't just shake, it ruptured. There are horrifying pictures of entire suburban neighborhoods where the earth just unzipped and the roofs of two-story houses are sitting flush with the surrounding pavement.
Because the foundations were entirely swallowed.
Swallowed whole, the land physically rose dozens of feet in a matter of minutes.
And an 8.3 is really a localized catastrophe. What's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the energy released when we zoom out and look at the end of the last ice age.
Okay, set the stage for us.
We are talking about the major deglaciation period. So this wasn't a gentle, sunny thaw where the ice slowly melted into a pleasant river.
Not at all.
We're looking at a period where massive continent-spanning ice sheets, some of them 2 miles thick, stretching from the Arctic down past the Great Lakes, just rapidly melted.
2 miles thick of solid ice.
Yes. The amount of water transferring from solid ice on land, suddenly rushing as liquid water into the global oceans, is almost unfathomable in its volume.
I want to stop and look at the math on that because it's honestly terrifying. Geologists estimate that this mass transfer caused earthquakes between a 10 and an 11 on the Richter scale.
Right, and the Richter scale is logarithmic.
Exactly. So every whole number increase represents a 10-fold increase in measured amplitude and roughly 31 times more energy release.
It's massive.
So if an 8.3 drops a house into the earth and violently shifts the landscape, what does a 10 or an 11 actually look like?
It is apocalyptic. A magnitude 10 or 11 earthquake would effectively liquefy the crust on a continental scale.
Oh, how?
You wouldn't just see fissures, you would see mountain ranges altering their elevation, coastlines completely disintegrating, and tsunami waves hundreds of feet high crossing entire oceans.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that.
And the reason for this violent planetary reaction comes down to the underlying physics of our planet, specifically a mechanism called the isostatic adjustment of the geoid.
Okay, let me see if I can translate the physics here.
Please do.
The geoid is the true shape of the Earth, accounting for gravitational pull and mass distribution, right?
Correct.
And it's always trying to maintain equilibrium. Think of the Earth's crust like a massive planetary waterbed.
I like that analogy.
During the Ice Age, you have these unimaginable weights, the 2-mile-high continent-spanning glaciers sitting right on top of North America and Northern Europe.
Right.
It's like a very heavy person standing squarely on one side of a waterbed. That specific side gets pushed down deep into the mantle.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. The crust is pushed down by the immense mass of the ice.
Okay.
But when those glaciers rapidly melt, that weight doesn't simply vanish into the ether. It turns into millions of cubic miles of water, and that water flows directly into the Atlantic Ocean.
So the heavy person standing on the North American side of the waterbed jumps off and lands directly onto the Atlantic Ocean side.
Exactly. And what must happen to the waterbed to maintain equilibrium?
The other side pops up.
Yes. The North American continent, suddenly freed of millions of tons of ice, rebounds violently upward.
Right.
This is known as post-glacial rebound, and we actually still see micromeasurements of it happening today in places like Scandinavia.
But the geoid must compensate for the new distribution of mass.
Precisely. The staggering weight has been transferred to the ocean basins.
Mm.
So to maintain gravitational and physical balance, the floor of the Atlantic Ocean is subjected to immense sudden pressure.
It has to go down.
It is forced to subside.
Uh-huh.
It collapses downward.
The Atlantic Ocean just caves in.
Yes.
If the Atlantic floor violently collapsed, there has to be a structural weak point where the crust gave way. The mid-Atlantic ridge is famously volatile.
Very.
So if the bottom falls out, what exactly went down with it? This leads perfectly into the geological anomalies because the source data points us straight to an area that seems to defy every standard geological model, which is the Azores.
The Azores anomaly is where the empirical data becomes undeniably compelling.
Let's talk about the drilling.
Yeah, so we are looking at a deep drilling experiment conducted in an active geothermal area of the Azores archipelago.
Okay.
Geologists drilled deep into the crust, expecting to find standard oceanic profiles. Instead, they discovered something that fundamentally should not be there.
What did they find?
They extracted core samples containing subaerial and shallow marine deposits.
Okay, I know subaerial means it formed in the open atmosphere, directly exposed to the air.
Right.
And shallow marine means it formed in very shallow water, like a tidal flat or a sunlit beach ecosystem.
Exactly.
But the depths we are talking about here are extreme.
Very extreme. They found these atmospheric and shallow water deposits sitting 786 meters, so roughly a half-mile below the present sea level.
A half mile underwater.
Yes.
Now, the immediate skeptical pushback you always hear is obvious, right? The ice melted, sea levels rose globally, so of course things that used to be beaches are now underwater.
Sorry.
It happens everywhere.
And that skeptical argument is instantly destroyed by the mathematics of sea level rise.
How so?
Yes, sea levels rose dramatically post-glaciation. But standard, gradual post-glacial sea level rise from the melting of the ice sheets roughly 18,000 years ago to today only accounts for 130 millimeters of subsidence in this specific geological model.
Millimeters. So we are talking about inches.
Exactly. Yet the core samples reveal we're missing over 500 meters of vertical drop.
That is massive.
A half-mile of sunken land absolutely cannot be explained by standard glacial melting and gradual sea level rise. The math does not reconcile.
It didn't just slowly get covered by a rising tide. The crust structurally failed.
Yes, the island physically sank.
Which brings us to Plato.
Right.
Because if you read Plato not as a philosopher writing parables, but as a historian transmitting an ancient record, his account of Atlantis aligns with this modern deep-sea drilling data in a way that is frankly chilling.
It really is.
It reads like a shockingly accurate geological field guide to the Azores.
The alignment is incredibly precise. In his dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, Plato specifically describes the island of Atlantis subsiding, going down beneath the waves after a massive seismic and flood event.
And the timing, too, right?
Yes. Furthermore, the timeline he provides, which translates to roughly 11,600 years ago, aligns flawlessly with what modern climatologists classify as meltwater pulse 1b.
Okay, remind me what that is.
This was a documented period of extremely rapid, catastrophic sea level rise and massive geological destabilization.
Which fits the model perfectly.
It is exactly the window in time when you would expect that magnitude 10 to 11 earthquake and the resulting collapse of the mid-Atlantic ridge due to isostatic adjustment.
The timeline matches perfectly, but it's the physical descriptions that really caught my attention.
They're so specific.
Yeah. Plato describes the macrogeography of Atlantis, highlighting this central plain surrounded by 9 great mountains that dominated the microcontinent.
Right.
If you look at a map of the Azores today, it is an archipelago made up of exactly 9 distinct islands.
Yeah.
Geologically, these islands are just the jagged peaks of those ancient sunken mountains poking out above the modern sea level, while the bulk of the continent sits a half-mile below in the dark.
And the correlations cascade from there, moving from macrogeography to highly specific localized infrastructure.
Oh, the springs.
Exactly. Plato wrote that the Atlanteans built their city utilizing both hot and cold springs that flowed naturally from the earth.
Which is such an oddly specific, mundane detail to include if you were just inventing a myth.
Right.
Like, why would a storyteller care about the temperature of the municipal plumbing?
You only include a detail like that if it is a defining characteristic of the landscape.
Yeah.
And when we examine that deep drilling data from the Azores today, researchers uncovered highly anomalous hydrothermal systems.
What did they find down there?
By monitoring the boreholes, they recorded a sudden extreme temperature differential. At roughly 550 meters deep, they found 205 degrees centigrade hot water flowing powerfully parallel to a geological bedding. But just above it, separated only by a thin, impermeable rock layer, there was 100 degrees centigrade water flowing.
Scalding hot water and cold water flowing side by side in the exact same hydrothermal plumbing system.
Yes.
And the crazy thing is, you don't even have to drill a half-mile down to see the remnants of this.
No, you don't.
If you travel to the Furnace Valley in the Azores today, you can literally walk among hot and cold springs bubbling right next to each other in the exact same caldera.
The geological fingerprint continues with the literal building blocks of the society.
The rocks.
Right. Plato explicitly cataloged the materials used to construct the Great Walls and infrastructure of Atlantis. He stated they quarried stone directly from the island, and he noted 3 specific colors of rock: red, black, and white.
And the Azores are geologically renowned for possessing an abundance of red basalt, black basalt, and white limestone.
It's the exact color palette Plato documented.
It is. But the piece of evidence that truly flips the board for me isn't just the color of the rocks, it's the fundamental composition of the crust itself.
This is crucial.
When geologists survey the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, they expect to find oceanic crust, right?
Correct.
Oceanic crust is primarily made of basalt. It's dense, it's dark, it forms from magma cooling at mid-ocean ridges.
Right.
Continents, however, are made of continental crust, which is lighter, more buoyant, and largely composed of granite.
Exactly.
These are 2 totally different types of rock forming in totally different environments.
Precisely. The oceanic crust is often referred to as semisilicate and magnesium.
Right.
Continental crust is silicolicate and aluminum. They are fundamentally distinct. And yet, when geological teams run seismic surveys and analyze the bedrock of the Azores Plateau, they find significant, undeniable amounts of granite.
Granite in the middle of the ocean.
Yes. They are finding continental crust sitting smack in the middle of a deep ocean basin where it fundamentally shouldn't exist. It is a glaring geological anomaly.
It makes no sense under the standard model.
Furthermore, the source notes that the specific rock profile of this granite matches the continental crust found in Northwest Africa.
Wow.
It isn't just a random volcanic upthrust. It is quite literally a sunken microcontinent.
I have to push back here, though, because if you spend any time looking into alternative history theories, the Azores is actually not the most viral candidate for Atlantis right now.
Ah, yes, the Richet structure.
Exactly. There's a massive internet movement pointing to the Richet structure, often called the Eye of the Sahara, in Mauritania.
I've seen it.
It's this massive, concentric, bullseye-looking geological formation visible from space. The visual resemblance to Plato's concentric rings is striking, and people are absolutely convinced that is the lost city.
The visual similarity of the Richet structure is undeniably captivating, which completely explains its viral popularity.
Right.
However, when you rigorously apply the actual source material, Plato's text, which remains the single foundational document for this entire investigation, the Mauritania location completely collapses under scrutiny.
Okay, so how does it fail? Because it has the concentric rings.
First and foremost, elevation.
Elevation.
Yes. The Richet structure currently sits 1,400 to 1,500 feet above sea level in a deeply arid desert. Plato is explicitly clear. Atlantis sank beneath the waves in a cataclysmic event.
It didn't rise 1,500 feet into a desert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Secondly, the geography is entirely wrong. Plato locates Atlantis beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we know as the Strait of Gibraltar, in the open Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, I see.
The Richet structure is located inland in Africa. It cannot accommodate the maritime naval descriptions provided in the Critiers.
Right. Plato describes an advanced maritime empire. They had massive fleets, deep water ports, and a global trade network. A landlocked structure in the Sahara doesn't support a global naval superpower.
Exactly. And while archaeologists have indeed found evidence of human occupation in and around the Richet structure, it completely contradicts the technological profile of Atlantis.
What kind of artifacts are they finding there?
The artifacts found there belong to the Acheulean culture. We're talking about basic lithic technology, hand axes, crude stone tools.
So Stone Age.
Yes. There is absolutely zero archaeological evidence of a vast, prosperous, technologically sophisticated empire capable of global maritime navigation.
Makes sense.
The Azores, conversely, perfectly match the geological anomalies, the geographical placement, the tectonic history, and the specific material descriptions provided by Plato.
Okay, if we accept this premise that there was a highly capable maritime culture thriving on this now sunken microcontinent in the middle of the Atlantic, it raises a massive logistical, almost biological question.
Which is,
How did they survive? We are talking about the late glacial maximum. The world was locked in a brutal ice age. Vast stretches of North America and Europe were buried under miles of solid ice. The climate was incredibly harsh.
very harsh.
It doesn't exactly sound like the ideal incubation chamber for a global maritime empire to flourish.
That's where a deep understanding of ancient climatology becomes absolutely vital to the narrative.
Okay, lay it on me.
You have to look at the mechanics of the ocean,
Mm.
specifically the massive thermal conveyor belt known as the Gulf Stream.
Right, the Gulf Stream.
Today, the Gulf Stream brings warm water from the equator, rushes it up past the eastern coast of North America, and carries that immense thermal energy across the Atlantic toward the British Isles and Scandinavia.
And that current is the only reason those northern regions are temperate today. Without the Gulf Stream, London and Oslo would have the climate of Siberia.
Precisely. But during the Ice Age, the ocean currents did not follow their modern paths. The presence of the massive northern ice sheets fundamentally altered the circulation.
How so?
The source details how, during the late glacial maximum, the Gulf Stream flowed hundreds of miles further south than its current trajectory.
It hit a wall of cold and had to divert. So where did all that equatorial heat actually go?
It literally wrapped directly around the elevated Azores Plateau.
Wow.
The warm tropical water flowing up from the equator would hit this raised continental landmass. It would swirl around the archipelago, continuously dropping its immense thermal energy right there.
Okay.
Then, as the water finally cooled and became denser, it would sink and circulate back down to the deep ocean floor.
Let me visualize this. You have a planet largely locked in ice. Miles-thick glaciers devastating the northern hemisphere.
Right.
But right there, sitting in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, you have this elevated microcontinent, and it is being continuously, relentlessly bathed in the warm tropical waters of the diverted Gulf Stream.
Yes.
It's functioning like a massive planetary thermal battery. It's basically an ancient hot tub in the middle of a freezer.
That analogy perfectly captures the thermodynamics of the situation. It was an idyllic, warm embrace in the middle of a frozen, hostile world.
An ice age oasis.
It was quite literally an ice age oasis. If you are a paleoanthropologist looking for the most logical, scientifically sound location for human civilization to not just survive a glacial maximum, but to thrive, develop complex social structures, invent maritime technology, and eventually expand outward.
The Azores.
An elevated Azores plateau acting as a thermal sink for the Gulf Stream is the absolute prime candidate.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if this civilization existed and possessed advanced technology, we need to completely recalibrate what advanced actually means.
Absolutely.
Because when you say advanced technology today, the immediate image is an iPhone, a fiber optic network, a silicon microchip, or a lithium-ion battery.
Right, our modern tech tree.
But the source material suggests their entire technological tree didn't branch into silicon and binary code. It branched into something we're only just beginning to understand, the manipulation of plasma through acoustic and electromagnetic frequency.
This is a crucial pivot in how we understand ancient capabilities. We suffer from extreme chronological snobbery.
Chronological snobbery, I like that.
We assume that because we don't dig up ancient circuit boards or internal combustion engines, these people must not have had high technology. But the source introduces a completely different paradigm of physics, one based on resonance, geometric coherence, and the fourth state of matter.
I want to dig deep into this plasma physics angle because for a lot of people, plasma is just, the stuff inside a neon sign or a sci-fi blaster.
Right.
We all learn the basic progression of matter in high school science. You start with a solid, atoms are tightly locked together in a lattice.
Okay.
If you pump thermal energy into that solid, the atoms gain kinetic energy, they break their rigid bonds, and it becomes a liquid. You add even more energy, the bonds break further, and it becomes a gas. Solid, liquid, gas.
Yes, standard physics.
But how do we get from a gas to this advanced plasma technology?
It requires pushing the energy state to an extreme. If you continue to bombard that gas, with immense amounts of energy, heat, electricity, or electromagnetic radiation, the electrons completely unbind from the nucleus of the atoms.
They break free.
You achieve complete ionization. You are left with a soup of positively charged ions and free-roaming, negatively charged electrons. This is plasma, the fourth state of matter.
Okay, got it.
Now, in its natural state, it is an incoherent, chaotic flow of particles. But because of those free electrons, plasma is highly electromagnetic and incredibly conductive.
It's essentially liquid electricity.
Yes.
But chaotic electricity doesn't build monuments or power cities. How do you harness a chaotic soup of free electrons?
Modern plasma physics is discovering exactly what the source material suggests the ancients knew. If you subject this highly conductive, chaotic plasma field to very specific vibrational frequencies, it doesn't just vibrate randomly.
What does it do?
It spontaneously coheres. The chaotic particles organize themselves into highly stable, specific geometric forms. Most notably, they form a self-sustaining vortex.
So you apply a sound or an electromagnetic wave, and the chaos suddenly organizes into a geometric tornado.
Precisely. It is acoustic and electromagnetic resonance. And once you have a coherent, organized plasma vortex, you have created a mechanism to theoretically extract immense amounts of energy from the ambient environment.
Unbelievable.
You are tapping into the fundamental atomic forces of nature. But you aren't doing it by burning fossil fuels or inducing nuclear fission inside a multi-billion-dollar vacuum chamber.
You are doing it through frequency.
You are doing it through the precise mathematical application of frequency and sacred geometry.
Sacred geometry. I mean, we see these incredibly complex geometric patterns carved into ancient temples all over the world, from the Assyrian in Egypt to temples in India and Mesoamerica.
Everywhere.
Modern academia usually writes it off as religious art. They just liked pretty shapes. But the source is arguing that these geometric arrangements, especially when they were built utilizing highly purified conductive materials, were not just decorative.
No, they were not.
They were functional. They
Right.
were literal physical blueprints designed to manipulate and cohere energetic frequencies.
The connection between this geometric coherence, specific frequencies, and ancient texts is where the data becomes truly staggering.
Oh, this is the math part.
Yes. The geometric forms that successfully organize plasma aren't random. They are defined by rigid mathematical proportions.
Right.
And when you look at the most ancient foundational traditions on Earth, the Sumerian king lists, the Mayan calendrics, the deepest esoteric traditions of the Bible, and especially the Vedic traditions of ancient India, you find these exact same mathematical numbers repeated over and over again.
Walk me through the math here. How does a Vedic text map onto modern plasma physics?
Look at the foundational Vedic concept of the yugas. The yugas are vast, cyclical ages of time that dictate the cosmic life cycle. The math is incredibly specific.
Okay.
The lowest cycle is the Kali Yuga, which the text state lasts exactly 432,000 years.
432,000.
The next age is the Dwapara Yuga, which is exactly double that, 864,000 years.
Yeah.
Then you have the Treta Yuga, which is triple the base, 1,296,000 years. The highest stage, the Asata Yuga, is quadruple the base, 1,728,000 years.
And it all adds up, right?
Yes, when you combine all four ages into the massive Mahayuga, it equals exactly 4,320,000 years.
432, 864, 1296, 1728. It's a perfect mathematical progression. They didn't just pull very large, dramatic numbers out of thin air to sound impressive.
They did not. These numbers are vibrational octaves. For example, 432 hertz is a highly specific vibrational frequency. In acoustics, it is often cited as the natural mathematical tuning for the musical note A.
432 hertz.
If you take 432 hertz and double the frequency, you get 864 hertz. That is the exact same musical note, perfectly harmonic, just one octave higher.
Oh, wow.
The ancient texts aren't simply giving us a mythological timeline to track the gods. They are transmitting, in plain sight, the mathematical formulas for vibrational octaves.
That is mind-blowing.
They are preserving the very acoustic and electromagnetic frequencies required to cohere plasma and manipulate energy.
It's like they hid an advanced physics textbook inside a religious chant to ensure it survived millennia of oral tradition.
That's a great way to put it.
But I know if I'm listening with this, I'm thinking, okay, ancient math and plasma vortexes sound cool in theory, but where's the proof? We can't just rely on translating old Sanskrit.
Fair point.
The source material grounds this in a deeply fascinating real-world application happening right now. Let's talk about the modern proof.
The source recounts a deeply compelling, heavily documented anecdote about a leading plasma scientist.
And this wasn't just a random guy in a garage.
No, this wasn't a fringe theorist. This was a man who originally built his career and his fortune in the highly pragmatic world of oil prospecting. He understood energy extraction.
He knew what he was doing.
He eventually sold his company, took his fortune, and secured a long-term lease on a remote island in the Indian Ocean. He built a private, state-of-the-art laboratory and spent over a decade doing nothing but researching this specific plasma technology.
But he hits a massive roadblock, right? He has the electromagnetic components, he generates the plasma, but it remains chaotic. He can't get it to cohere into that stable vortex we talked about.
Correct. The mechanical and electrical engineering was flawless, but the physical coherence eluded him. His breakthrough didn't come from a modern physics journal.
Where did it come from?
It came when he observed a lecture on the mathematics of sacred geometry, specifically the exact ancient vibrational frequencies we just discussed, like 432 and 8 and 64.
The Vedic numbers?
Yes. He had a paradigm shift. He realized that the ancient geometry was the missing programmatic key. When he retooled his plasma containment devices to reflect those specific ancient mathematical proportions, the plasma finally cohered. The device worked.
Now, anyone familiar with the wilder corners of the internet knows this invention eventually gets tied up in the lore of a famous lost episode of the Joe Rogan podcast featuring an eccentric inventor named Malcolm.
Yes, that Malcolm.
And the source absolutely acknowledges that Malcolm is a deeply eccentric, controversial character, but it emphasizes, strictly and clearly, that the core technology developed based on these geometric principles is real, and more importantly, it was subjected to rigorous hostile testing.
The testing environment is what validates this beyond mere internet lore. We are not talking about a grainy video shot in someone's backyard garage.
No.
This technology was transported to a major, highly respected physics laboratory in the Research Triangle in North Carolina.
And the lab didn't just take his word for it. They brought in some very heavy hitters who were actively looking to debunk it.
They brought in a team of senior scientists from Los Alamos National Laboratory, some of the most elite physicists and engineers in the world.
Los Alamos.
Okay. And these Los Alamos scientists were deeply, fundamentally skeptical. They assumed they were being presented with a parlor trick or a hidden energy source. To prevent any possibility of fakery or rigged equipment, they flatly refused to use any of the lab's built-in diagnostic tools. They brought in their own proprietary, highly calibrated mass spectrometers and gas analyzers.
They essentially said, we don't trust your wires. We are going to plug our own military-grade sensors directly into the exhaust and the intake, and we are going to measure precisely what is happening at the subatomic level.
Yes.
And what were the results of that hostile test?
The results stunned the Los Alamos team. They connected the plasma device to two standard off-the-shelf diesel-driven generators.
Okay.
The plasma device didn't replace the engine. It acted as a frequency catalyst. By inputting a tiny amount of initial energy to cohere the plasma into a vortex, it radically altered the combustion chemistry inside the cylinders.
Wow.
It massively increased the efficiency of the molecular breakdown to the point where they were essentially running these heavy internal combustion engines on water. The mass spectrometers confirmed the input and output. The physics worked.
Running diesel generators on water. By utilizing the exact same frequency mathematics that were painstakingly preserved in Vedic texts thousands of years ago.
It's incredible.
It completely redefines what we think of when we use the word technology. Which brings us to the physical footprint. Because if ancient humans understood these immense energetic forces, if they could manipulate mass and energy using frequency, what physical evidence did they leave behind that we can touch today?
We have to look at the stones.
Right. What did they build with this knowledge?
To truly grasp the magnitude of the physical evidence, we have to spend a moment on the basic physics of labor. Moving mass requires a proportionate amount of energy. The source draws a brilliant, highly relatable comparison here. The speaker in the source references his own decades of hands-on experience in modern heavy construction.
Right. He talks about the reality of moving 1 to 2 ton steel I-beams on a modern job site.
Yes.
Even today, if you are in a location where you can't just swing a massive hydraulic crane into place, moving a single 1-ton piece of steel requires hours of grueling, dangerous manual labor.
Absolutely.
You need complex pulley systems, come along, steel livers, you pry up one end a fraction of an inch, shove a wedge under it, go to the other side, pry that up, slide a shim in. You slowly, agonizingly walk the beam into place, and that massive effort is for a 1-ton beam.
Now, contrast that grueling modern reality with the megalithic architecture we see globally in the ancient world.
Mm.
Across the temples of Malta, high in the Andes of South America, across northern Europe, and throughout the Old Kingdom of Egypt, we see stones weighing 20, 30, and even upwards of 40 tons.
It's just absurd.
These stones were quarried, transported over miles of rough terrain, lifted high into the air, and fitted together with a precision that prevents you from sliding a piece of paper between the joints. And they did this with what appears to be total impunity.
It's one thing to argue that an ancient society was just weirdly obsessed with moving big rocks and threw hundreds of thousands of slaves at the problem for decades.
Right.
But the staggering scale, the sheer weight, and the repetition of this exact architectural style globally suggest they possessed a completely different technique.
Exactly.
If they understood plasma and frequency, it implies they may have leveraged acoustic or electromagnetic technologies to manipulate mass, alter local gravity, or effortlessly cut stone in ways modern engineering is only just beginning to conceptualize.
It changes everything.
But what I find most fascinating in this source material isn't the Great Pyramid or Stonehenge, it's the megalithic footprint sitting right here in North America, which has been largely ignored.
Yes. We must look at unglaciated North America. The source reveals a vast pre-Columbian network of monumental earthworks that completely shatters the standard historical narrative of the continent.
Shatters it.
We are talking about structures whose scale and geometric precision are contemporary with, or perhaps even older than, the Old Kingdom of Egypt, located right here in the American South and the Mississippi River Valley.
Let's give you some vivid imagery here. Let's look at Poverty Point down in the Louisiana-Mississippi Delta region.
Yes, Poverty Point.
This isn't just a haphazard pile of dirt left over from a campsite. It is a massive, perfectly geometric, multi-ringed half circle that is roughly 2,000 feet in diameter. It is composed of 6 concentric C-shaped ridges. The amount of earth moved is staggering. And what's wilder is that when we use modern aerial archaeology and LiDAR scanning, we see this exact same incredibly complex geometric design duplicated perfectly at least 5 other distant sites across the vast Mississippi floodplain.
The mathematical and logistical precision required to duplicate a 2,000-foot geometric structure across vast, heavily forested distances is immense.
Right.
It implies a highly sophisticated understanding of surveying, advanced geometry, and a massive level of centralized, continent-wide social organization.
And Poverty Point is just the beginning.
Exactly. You have Cahokia, located near modern-day St. Louis.
Cahokia is mind-blowing. It features Monk's Mound, which is a multi-tiered, truncated pyramid that covers several football fields at its base. It originally stood 80 to 100 feet high.
Which is massive for an earthwork.
The footprint of this earthen pyramid is actually larger than the footprint of the Great Pyramid of Giza.
And you have other monumental sites like Emerald Mound in Mississippi and the immense Lake George Group. These are not simple burial mounds. They are massive, highly engineered earthwork sculptures.
Right.
Furthermore, they are surrounded by huge excavated canals, some measuring 10 to 20 feet deep. The millions of tons of earth systematically excavated from these canals were the exact materials utilized to meticulously construct the central geometric structures.
Now, I want to be extremely careful here because we have to impartially report on the fierce controversy surrounding these sites.
It is a sensitive topic.
Very. The current mainstream archaeological theory for Cahokia and these other massive earthworks is that they were built by indigenous, largely hunter-gatherer or early agricultural societies.
Right.
And the widely accepted method for construction, carrying dirt by hand in woven wicker baskets, which they meticulously dug out of the hardened ground using the discarded antlers of elk.
When you calculate the pure volume of earth moved, we are talking about tens of millions of cubic feet of heavily compacted soil, perfectly arranged into vast aligning geometric patterns. The wicker basket and elk antler theory severely stretches credulity regarding the time, calories, and labor force required.
It's tough math.
Now, to remain strictly neutral and report the facts of the source, the text notes that 19th century surveyors, such as Squire and Davis, famously documented their interactions with the local indigenous tribes of the era.
And what did they say?
When these early surveyors asked the tribal elders who built these massive geometric structures, the tribes explicitly stated that the mounds were there before their ancestors arrived, and they did not know who built them.
Right. And it is crucial to state that this specific topic is a massive political lightning rod in modern archaeology.
Absolutely.
Researchers like Graham Hancock face intense, highly politically charged pushback. They are frequently accused of racism, or erasing history, for even suggesting that an older, lost civilization might have had a hand in these designs.
Yes, the debate is very heated.
The mainstream argument strictly insists that proposing a lost civilization unfairly robs indigenous peoples of their historical ingenuity and achievements.
And the source handles this deeply sensitive issue delicately but firmly. It objectively states that the sheer physical labor required to erect these structures was indeed most likely provided by indigenous populations over time.
Okay, so they moved the dirt.
Right. The fundamental question the source raises isn't about who physically moved the dirt. The question is where the initial impetus, the highly advanced geometric knowledge, and the immense social organization required to execute these continent-wide, mathematically precise blueprints actually came from.
The blueprints are the mystery.
Objectively speaking, the staggering scale and precision of these earthworks severely challenged the standard historical model of isolated hunter-gatherer societies, spontaneously deciding to build 2,000-foot geometric arrays in their spare time.
And the practical function of these structures adds another profound layer of complexity that points to advanced knowledge.
The astronomy.
Yes. The source mentions the experience of physically standing on top of Cahokia, or Emerald Mound. Why expend millions of man-hours to build a flat, truncated pyramid 80 feet in the air? It's not just for prestige.
The primary function appears to be highly advanced astronomy. When you ascend and stand on top of these massive flat platforms, you are elevated completely above the local tree line.
Okay.
You are provided with a perfectly flat, unimpeded, 360-degree view of the natural horizon.
Which is exactly what you need.
This is the exact mandatory architectural requirement you need to track complex celestial motions. The extreme solstices of the sun, the intricate 18.6-year lunar maximum and minimum cycles, the precession of the stars, with an incredibly high degree of mathematical precision over long periods of time.
They weren't just hills. They were massive, highly calibrated earthen astronomical observatories.
Yes.
But this brings up the most common and honestly the most logical question anyone hearing this is going to shout at their speakers.
Where is the evidence?
Exactly. If this highly advanced, maritime, plasma-wielding, mathematically obsessed civilization existed, where is all their stuff?
Right.
If they were so great, where is the advanced pottery? Where are the metal tools? Where are the rusted-out husks of their machines and the stone ruins of their vast cities?
If we connect this all back to the bigger picture we established at the beginning of this deep dive, we have to confront a reality that modern humans are terribly shielded from.
The Great Eraser.
The terrifying, absolute erasing power of deep time and global cataclysm. We simply do not comprehend the violent scale of planetary change.
We really don't.
Glaciers are the ultimate eraser of history. Think about the physics of a 2-mile-high sheet of solid ice moving relentlessly across a continent.
Just grinding everything down.
The sheer unfathomable weight and the grinding friction of that ice mass acts like a planetary belt sander of doom. The source explicitly notes that a glacier of that size and weight doesn't just push topsoil around. It can strip away a half-mile of solid bedrock in a matter of weeks.
A half mile of solid bedrock,
Yeah.
completely pulverized.
Totally pulverized into what geologists call glacial till. Glacial till is just a chaotic, churning slurry of mud, sand, and crushed gravel.
Okay.
Now imagine a vast, ancient city, even one built with massive, megalithic stone blocks, sitting directly in the path of that advancing ice.
You wouldn't stand a chance.
Any infrastructure made of stone, clay, wood, or early refined metals wouldn't just be knocked over or buried. It would be ground into molecular dust.
Wow.
It would be relentlessly churned back into the earth, completely indistinguishable from the natural geology. When a glacier finally recedes thousands of years later, it leaves behind hundreds of feet of this pulverized dirt. If there was a glorious temple, a bustling seaport, or a thriving technological city there before the Ice Age, it is gone, period. The Earth recycles it.
It's a genuinely terrifying thought. We walk through Manhattan or look at a massive highway system, and we think of our concrete and steel as permanent. We think we have conquered nature.
We haven't.
But to a 2-mile-high glacier, our greatest architectural triumphs are just dust waiting to be made. There will be nothing left but glacial till.
Nothing.
And to really hammer home how skewed our perspective on human time actually is, the source does this brilliant, deeply humanizing generational reality check.
This specific breakdown is crucial for reframing our timeline because it exposes the flaw in how we visualize human progress. Modern Homo sapiens, anatomically identical to you and me, possessing the exact same brain capacity, the same vocal cords, the same capacity for complex thought and engineering, have been walking this earth for a remarkably long
How
time.
long?
The source initially cites older conservative estimates of 150,000 to 200,000 years. But as we know from more recent archaeological discoveries like the skeletal remains found in Jebel Irhoud, Morocco, that timeline of anatomically modern humans has now been pushed back to roughly 300,000 years.
300,000 years, 300 millennia of human beings with the exact same intelligence, curiosity, and drive that we have right now.
Yes.
And yet, mainstream history basically demands that we believe these identical humans sat around shivering in caves, occasionally inventing a slightly sharper, pointy rock, for 295,000 of those years, and only figured out how to build a civilization in the last 5,000.
It doesn't make logical sense.
It really doesn't, and the source illustrates this beautifully by tracing a rapid 4-generation lineage that is just staggering when you actually map it out.
The rate of human adaptation when given a stable environment is purely exponential. The speaker in the source recounts the life of his great-grandfather, who was born just after the American Civil War.
Okay, generation 1.
This was a man who stowed away on a cattle boat from Sweden at just 16 years old. He arrived in America not speaking a word of English. He worked relentlessly in a purely cyclical world. He would dig entire house basements completely by hand, using nothing but shovels, picks, and brute human muscle, just to survive and build a life.
Okay, so that's generation 1, post-Civil War. The world is defined by immense physical labor, moving earth by hand, very little mechanization. Then you jump to generation 2, the grandparents, born in the 1890s. When they were children, the dominant, bleeding-edge mode of human transportation was still the horse and buggy.
Yes.
But within their single lifetime, they saw the mass commercial adoption of the automobile. They witnessed the profound transition from biological muscle power to combustible engines.
Then we move to generation 3. The parents, born in the 1920s, they grew up during the severe economic hardship of the Great Depression and were thrust into the mechanized meat grinder of World War II.
Right.
The source specifically mentions his father training on PT boats, highly motorized, heavily armed, radar-equipped torpedo boats. We've gone from horse-drawn carriages and shovels to mechanized, radar-guided global warfare in just a few decades.
And finally, generation 4, the modern day. The speaker himself. He talks about his own career, transitioning from hand-drawing architectural blueprints on paper with a pencil to mastering 3D CAD computer-aided design software where you can build an entire city in a digital space and then projecting this knowledge globally via satellite, internet, and YouTube.
4 generations. From a terrified teenager digging mud basements by hand with a shovel in the 1870s to rendering complex 3D architecture in a limitless digital space today. We are looking at a chronological window of roughly 150 years.
So what does this all mean? Look at that trajectory. Look at the sheer velocity of that progress.
It's exponential.
If human beings operating with the exact same neurological hardware, the same brains we have had for 300,000 years, can go from riding horses to splitting the atom, walking on the surface of the moon, and manipulating digital realities in the span of just 150 years.
Yes.
I have to say it is profoundly, absurdly arrogant of modern academia to assume that our ancestors simply stared at the dirt and did absolutely nothing for 299,850 years.
It defies fundamental logic. It defies human nature. We are innate tool builders. We are organizers. We seek to master our environment. If you give a human brain just 10,000 years of relative climate stability, it will inevitably build a complex civilization.
That stability is rare.
The grand tragedy of our planet is not that humans are slow to learn. The tragedy is that the Earth rarely grants us that much uninterrupted time. The cataclysms, the massive tectonic shifts, the rapid glacial melts, the oceanic collapses we discussed, they hit the planetary reset button over and over again. We build the tower, and the Earth shakes it down to the bedrock.
And that perfectly synthesizes the incredible mind-bending journey we've taken today. We've looked at the volatile, rapidly shifting crust of our planet, realizing that the ground beneath our feet is capable of instantaneous apocalyptic change.
Absolutely.
We've seen how Plato's seemingly mythical account of a sunken empire aligns with shocking empirical precision to the deep-sea geological anomalies of the Azores, a sunken microcontinent composed of continental granite once wrapped in the warm, life-giving embrace of an Ice Age Gulf Stream.
We've explored the lost sciences, discovering how ancient Vedic numbers correspond perfectly to the acoustic and electromagnetic frequencies needed to cohere chaotic plasma.
A profoundly advanced technology.
Proven in modern hostile physics labs to drastically alter energy production and manipulate the atomic forces of nature.
And we've walked among the massive, overlooked earthworks of North America. We've seen Poverty Point and Cahokia as monumental geometric observatories built with a precision that absolutely defies the standard historical model, only to realize that the vast majority of these ancient triumphs were likely pulverized into microscopic dust by the great glacial sander of deep time.
It's sobering.
We started this deep dive talking about the myth of the slow climb. It's not a staircase. It's a mosaic that has been shattered, swept away, and rebuilt dozens of times over 300,000 years. We are just picking up the few jagged pieces of rock and math that miraculously managed to survive the ice and the floods.
We are a species suffering from collective amnesia, living on a planet that specializes in erasing its own history.
Which leaves me with one final provocative thought for you to ponder as we wrap up. We spent all this time talking about how ancient advanced achievements were erased by glaciers and time, but I want you to flip that mirror around. Imagine if the Earth's reset button was pressed tomorrow. A massive magnitude 11 seismic shift or a sudden dramatic glaciation period begins. Imagine our towering glass cities, our vast underground server farms, our delicate fiber optic networks, all ground down into microscopic glacial till over the next 20,000 years.
The plastic would quickly degrade, the steel beams of our skyscrapers would rust and disintegrate into dust, the magnetic and digital data containing our entire history would vanish instantly.
Exactly. So what would actually survive? If a new civilization rises 20,000 years from now, slowly climbs out of their own Stone Age and starts digging into the Earth, what solitary, monumental piece of our world would they find intact?
A great question.
And when their archaeologists finally uncover the massive, curved concrete retaining wall of the Hoover Dam buried under a mile of dirt, or they excavate the sprawling, sweeping, geometric asphalt lines of an interstate highway interchange, will they understand the physics and the engineering of what it was? Or will their experts look at our ruins, declare us primitive, and confidently assume the Hoover Dam was just a religious earthwork built by a simple people carrying wet concrete in wicker baskets? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the timeline.